Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mike Farnworth, Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General for British Columbia. I'm speaking with you today from the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. In the summers of 2017 and 2018, BC faced the most damaging wildfire seasons in our history. While the fires we're seeing now are not yet as widespread, their impact has been great. The grief and hardship being faced by the people of Lytton and the Lytton First Nation is immense, and I offer my thanks for your partnership and all that you've done to support your communities. I also offer my condolences for the tragic loss of two of your own community members. I know the losses are fresh, and it will take time to process it all, but I am confident that we can work together to rebuild. The province will be there to support. The province will continue to do everything possible, as we have from the start, to protect communities from wildfires and support people who are required to evacuate from their homes. Since early July, Canadian Armed Forces assets have been providing airlift support to transport personnel, supplies, and equipment into and out of areas affected by fires in British Columbia and aiding in evacuations. And just this morning, the federal government approved our request for additional personnel to support wildfire crews around the province, augmenting the federal resources already on the ground. This will involve mop-up work, extinguishing hotspots on contained fires, and monitoring operations. We've also deployed out-of-province crews and resources from Alberta, New Brunswick, Quebec, and parts Canada. And this coming Saturday, approximately 100 firefighters from Mexico will arrive, accompanied by one COVID-19 safety officer and two agency representatives. Given the wildfire danger across Canada and the Pacific Northwest and the complications that come with COVID-19, it has been challenging to source trained crews. At this time, more than 3,180 firefighters and resource staff are currently actively engaged in fighting fires in all fire regions in the province. This includes 1,080 contractors and 135 out-of-province resources. I want to assure British Columbians that we are deploying all available personnel and equipment to fight the fires in communities across our province. Every opportunity is being pursued. In a briefing last night, officials advised that we will be facing some days of very difficult weather in the interior. What is forecast may lead to more severe fire behavior and the potential for more evacuations. As mentioned, resources remain tight, both on the fire lines and in our ability to provide accommodations to evacuees. Volunteer resources are also stretched thin. We have reached a critical point. Based on the advice of emergency management and wildfire officials and my briefing last night on the worsening weather, I am declaring a provincial state of emergency. This will address the potential for a mass evacuation scenario and provide our government with the means to secure the accommodation spaces necessary to support evacuees. Our government has seen incredible cooperation with the private sector and all levels of government, and I fully expect that to continue. But this measure will ensure that the province can do what is necessary moving forward. This provincial state of emergency will take effect at midnight tonight. It is my hope that extraordinary powers under the Emergency Program Act will not be necessary, but putting the declaration in place now gives us the ability to move quickly if that need arises, and that cooperation in this response will remain the priority of everyone. Wildfire threats to our communities are going to continue for the foreseeable future. Overnight, the Osoyoos Indian Band was evacuated and alerts and orders were issued to parts of nearby Osoyoos and Oliver. Alerts are also in place for 100 Mile House, Ashcroft, Clinton, and several other areas. We're still in mid-July with challenging conditions expected to persist in the coming weeks. So I want to again ask anyone who may be threatened by wildfire this summer to get an evacuation plan ready. Contact friends and family to ensure you have somewhere to go should the worst happen. Heed the alerts and evacuation orders. While the province will continue to support anyone in need of emergency support services, having a plan will expedite care for those who have no other option. And if you have the opportunity and means, please do what you can to fire smart your property, whether that's trimming trees, clearing grass and gutters, and helping your neighbors. You're not only helping to protect your property and those in your community, but also the firefighters who may be called on to protect it. Again, I want to acknowledge and express sincere appreciation for the efforts of all involved in this emergency response. We will continue to assess and monitor the situation closely. Our government is committed to do whatever is necessary to protect and support local governments and First Nations, and we will see the other side of this fire season. We just need to work together for the best interest of anyone. Thank you for your time. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Minister. We have 4 additional speakers on today's call. They are Cliff Chapman with the BC Wildfire Service, Peter Brock with Emergency Management BC, Eric Stubbs with the BC RCMP, Dr. Sarah Henderson with the BC Centre for Disease Control. Media who wish to ask a question, please press *1 to enter the queue. You will be limited to 1 question only. We will offer follow-up once everyone has had a chance to ask their question. With that, I will now turn it over to Cliff Chapman with the BC Wildfire Service.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me today. I want to echo Minister Farnsworth's comments, issuing a thank you to all BC Wildfire Service staff, contractors, partner agencies, and the communities who've been impacted by this devastating wildfire season for their support and the support they've shown our people on the ground. It's truly appreciated from our staff who are working tirelessly around the clock trying to suppress these wildfires, and knowing what's coming in this week, which I'll touch on in a little bit. We very much appreciate the shows of support from the communities and across the province. So a quick overview from BC Wildfire Service. So to date, we've had 1,145 fires this wildfire season. We've had 11 new wildfires in the last 24 hours and 145 wildfires in the last 7 days. So significant increase in activity from what would be deemed average in a 10-year average. To date, there is a total of 300,000 hectares that have burned within the province of BC. That's approximately 200,000 hectares more than the 10-year average for this time of year within the province of BC. Minister Farnsworth touched on the resources that we've deployed across the province, including multiple out-of-province and out-of-country resources which are arriving this week into the province. With the rundown that Minister Farnsworth gave, we are expecting roughly 500 additional staff joining the support efforts and the suppression efforts on the ground in the next 10 days, which is going to be welcome help for our staff and our crews in the field. The forecast that Minister Farnsworth touched on, we are expecting what we call a subtropical feed coming up from the United States, which is going to bring significant wind into the Southeast Fire Center and the interior of the province. What this means is that we are going to see our efforts on the fires that are on the landscape challenged. Our control lines will be challenged, and we have the potential to see significant fire behavior across the province, in particular in the southern half of the province, where the conditions remain extremely dry and extremely volatile. There is a wind warning that went out today, which covers the next 48 hours, and we are doing everything we can to prepare for the incoming wind event. Very likely not to see any moisture come with the event over the next 2 days, and we're doing everything we can to prepare for the existing fires, as well as the potential that we may see another batch of lightning come through the southeast and potentially the Kamloops fire centers, which will lead to additional starts within the land base while we continue to try to suppress the fires that already exist. With that, the final message from BC Wildfire Service is, and Minister Farnsworth touched on it, please have an evacuation plan ready for your family. Yesterday, on one of our incidents, we had folks that remained within an evacuation order zone. We deployed aircraft assets who put their lives at risk to try to evacuate those people. At night, smoky conditions and extreme fire behavior. I can tell you from working in this branch for 20 years that I would be taking my family out if I was on an evacuation order today. And I encourage everyone in BC to take that advice and do the same for your family. And with that, I look forward to questions. Thank you.
Now we turn to Peter Brock with Emergency Management BC.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just expand and reinforce Cliff's points he made on behalf of BC Wildfire. So I want to be really clear, when you are in evacuation order, you are at risk, as mentioned previously. And when you are on evacuation order, leave the area immediately. For evacuation alert, if you're on evacuation alert, be prepared to leave your home quickly. And our team at EMBC is asking those on evacuation alert to monitor your local authority public information channels for both alerts or orders, and it's very fluid and changes very quickly. So be sure to monitor your local authority, and that is the source of information. Create an emergency kit and a grab-and-go bag for yourself or your family. Make sure that you have clothing, medications, water, food, comfort items, and important documents and things like photo albums or other things that can't be replaced. Please, as mentioned, as the minister had previously mentioned, please plan your accommodation with family members or friends, and this will really help British Columbians with acquiring accommodations where they don't have those options, and it frees up space in hotels and other areas where there are people that are having a hard time finding places to stay. If you are evacuated, make sure you register with emergency support services, and that's whether or not you need support. It's just so that your loved ones and communities know where you are and when you're safe. You can register online at ess.gov.bc.ca or by phone at 1-800-585-9559. And if you need support, please proceed to one of your local reception centers so they can help you. That's all I have for my update today. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Eric Stubbs with BC RCMP.
Good afternoon. Quick update from the BC RCMP. We are continuing to assist numerous communities across the province with this wildfire event. Obviously, it's very dynamic and changes at quick notice. We are continuing to identify and deploy RCMP resources in those areas that are subject to evacuation alerts or orders. We have to date already deployed 100 RCMP officers and support staff to specific areas around the province. In addition to that, we do have some officers on standby, ready to deploy if needed, if a new fire does break out. I do want to note an important point. Any areas that are subjected to an evacuation order, we are there. We if we can and it's safe, we're still in the area. We have roving patrols to monitor these areas, to prevent looting or any thefts, as well as our roadblocks and checkpoints that we have established. In regards to specific communities, obviously the fire in Osoyoos and Oliver yesterday was a dynamic one. We did a number of tactical evacuations, worked very closely with the Osoyoos Indian Band as well as the local search and rescue group. It went very well. Some communities in the interior, 100 Mile House, Clinton, Ashcroft, there is a threat of an evacuation order potentially looming, so we have proactively deployed more resources in that area in case that occurs, so a safe evacuation of those communities, if needed, can occur. I also want to, as others have done, Minister Farnworth and others, I want to emphasize every community that is under alert or order to be ready to have a plan. We certainly are really pleased to see when we do door-to-door tactical evacuations, when people are ready to go, they're packed and they go. That is something we like to see, and we don't always see that. So please, when you're in this situation, you need to be ready. Thank you very much. And again, please take any questions if needed.
Thank you very much. And our final speaker today is Dr. Sarah Henderson with the BC Centre for Disease Control.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. I want to reiterate the thanks for our first responders who are working under very difficult circumstances out there. I just want to give you an update on the wildfire smoke situation. We do have significant smoke throughout the central and eastern part of the province. The atmosphere is quite well mixed right now, so that smoke is moving up But we also have significant smoke starting to come in from fires in the US as well. And with the conditions that are predicted over the next few days, we may see even more wildfire smoke in the area. Wildfire smoke can certainly affect the health of everybody. We all need to breathe. It is particularly concerning for those who have pre-existing respiratory conditions, such as asthma or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. If you are not under evacuation alert or order, we recommend that you take precautions if you feel that you are suffering from the smoke by creating a cleaner airspace in your home if possible. If you are under evacuation alert or order, please be sure if you use rescue medications to ensure that you have an ample supply with you, and to work with your physicians and pharmacists to ensure that you can keep those rescue medications with you, and that you have a plan for bringing any exacerbations under control that you have. Smoke just makes everything, all of this, more difficult. Also very happy to answer any questions about smoke and health.
Thank you very much. That concludes our operational updates today. A reminder to media on the line, please press star 1 to enter the queue. You will initially be limited to one question. Once you've concluded your question, please feel free to press star 1 and enter the queue for a follow-up. Our first question today goes to Richard Bussman, Global News.
Minister Farnworth, what took so long first to call the state of emergency? Especially considering we have heard over the last few days that all the evacuation spaces in terms of hotels were full in Kamloops, were full in a number of other communities. Did you take too long to do this? And what do you say about getting people into places now as more people are being evacuated and there are fears that even more will be evacuated?
Thanks for the question, Richard. Decision to go to a state of emergency, as I've indicated in previous interviews, has been based on advice that I received from the experts at BC Wildfire Service and EMBC. Based on the briefing that I had last night about the weather events that we're facing and the potential for significant winds and dry lightning and the potential for extremely aggressive fires as a result of that, the decision was made to put in place the state of provincial emergency. That's monitored on a day-by-day basis. We currently have 13 evacuation centers in place. While, yes, there are full in Kamloops or very tight in Kamloops, there are lots of spaces in other parts of the province, for example, in Prince George. And I can tell you that, for example, last week at the center there were about 130 evacuees there. But we recognize that there needs to be a significant number of centers possible. And this is one of those areas that if we do have to have a significant evacuation taking place because if there are fires that occur that cause that, then we're going we want to make sure that those spaces are there. This state of provincial emergency will in fact ensure that takes place. The reality is this: we've had amazing cooperation from local government already in identifying spaces, but we want to make absolutely sure, and I fully expect that will continue, we want to make absolutely sure that we have the ability to house evacuees if there is a significant evacuation that's going to have to take place.
Next question, Victor Kaiser, Radio NL.
Hi, Minister. Thanks for doing this. Richard kind of asked part of my question, so I guess I'll ask you on this front. What would you say to a lot of people in the interior who, in the Kamloops area, we've been with smoky, fiery conditions now for weeks, and yes, the situation in Osoyoos Oliver was significant, but they seem to feel that because now it impacts people in the lower mainland that may have cottages and what have you in that part of the province, you're now acting based on the information that you've received. So what do you tell to a lot of these people who feel like they've just been ignored now for the past several weeks up until this point?
I fully understand that smoke-filled skies are incredibly frustrating and fire is incredibly frustrating. We all do. But the idea that somehow it's because people live in the lower mainland aren't impacted is just simply not correct. We have right now over 3,000 men and women fighting fires in this province. We have had great support from the federal government in terms of making not only aircraft available, but ground resources available as well. We have had amazing cooperation with local governments right across the province, and in particular in the Cariboo region. Everything that we can possibly do in terms of securing resources is being done. And that's been in place since this fire season started, and it started early. And we are going to continue to ensure that the supports are there for people, both in terms of social services for those who are evacuated, and to ensure that we have as many resources as possible on those front lines fighting fires. And as I've said, there's over 3,000 men and women, mostly British Columbians, but a lot from outside of this province, and on Saturday are going to be joined by more than 100 firefighters coming up from Mexico.
Next question is Lisa Yusta, News 1130.
Hi, Minister. This area is one area, when you're talking about the southeast corner, as an area that's so looking forward to tourism once getting out of the pandemic. How are you going to ensure that the message of safety for people who are living in the area gets out, as well as messages for people who want to come visit of where it's safe, where it's not, so people just don't blanket stay away and think that the whole southern part of the province is on fire? How do you walk that line, and how will you walk that line?
I think one of the things I would say to that is that's why it's important to follow the wildfire updates that are available daily and are online, and you can see where the evacuation alerts and orders are. But it's also to use common sense and to check ahead. That's also one of the powers under the state of emergency, for example, that I would have available, which is that if, for example, there was a significant evacuation having to take place, then there would be the ability to put in place a travel restriction, and obviously that would be well publicized.
For the next question, we go to Wayne Moore, Castanet.
Well, thank you and good afternoon. Just curious, in terms of timber lost and money spent, wondering if you can give us an idea of this fire season in terms of what we've seen in other historic seasons from 2003 and also 2017 and 2018.
In terms of money spent, what I'll say at this point is that we spend what's required to fight the fires. That's budget is not an issue, and so in terms of the money spent, we will have a better understanding towards later in the fire season. Right now, the priority is fighting those fires. In terms of timber lost, what I'll do is I'll turn that question over to BC Wildfire to see if they have an idea. But if they don't, then we can probably get some indication from the Ministry of Forests.
Thank you for the question. I don't have the specifics on the numbers, but in terms of comparing this fire season to 2017 or 2018, I have said on past media briefs prior to this that it wasn't the right time to compare it, and I would say that again. We can do the comparisons at the end of this season.
From the Ministry of Forests.
Thank you for the question. I don't have the specifics on the numbers, but in terms of comparing this fire season to 2017 or 2018, I have said on past media briefs prior to this that it wasn't the right time to compare it, and I would say that again. We can do the comparisons at the end of the season. As I said in my intro today, we're roughly 300,000 hectares burnt to date. It's only July 20th today. We have a long season ahead of us. And in 17 and 18, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was roughly 500,000 hectares in each of those seasons. So we are certainly trending towards having a similar season to 2017 or 2018. And that's something that, why, as Minister Farnsworth said, budget is something that, we're throwing all resources available, not just within BC, but internationally, to do everything we can to suppress these wildfires, both to protect communities and obviously also to protect resource values on the land base.
Our next question is from Ben Milger, CTV.
Yes, Minister Farnsworth, now that you have declared this state of emergency effectively, what resources does that unlock for the province that were not available yesterday?
What it does is it gives myself as minister the power, for example, to ensure that we have enough evacuation spaces if a major evacuation is required. Does it unlock additional firefighting resources in terms of boots on the ground? No, it does not. That is coordinated through the Interagency Fire Center in Winnipeg, and that's already in place, and they have been supplying firefighters from out of province to us already. In terms of our agreements, partnerships with firefighters from outside of the province, again, they're already in place. In terms of the private sector, it would allow me, for example, to technically commandeer an aircraft or trucks if that were required. But the reality is this: is the private sector has stepped up and has provided resources that we've requested and that we have needed.
Our next question goes to Jeff Andreas, Radio NL.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I guess this is for Emergency Management BC, but we have been hearing from local mayors, from regional districts for a couple of weeks asking for a state of emergency to be called, and there has been a reluctancy to call one until this point. I know Minister Farnworth, yourself, and Premier John Horgan have said numerous times a state of emergency not going to have a significant impact, and you just sort of went over that again on what powers it actually changes for yourself. But for Emergency Management BC, what's changed over the last 2 weeks? We've been waiting for this call to be made, and finally the advice was given yesterday. Why did it take this long?
That question I already answered, and that is, as minister, I am the minister responsible for authorizing a state of emergency. Each day I get an update, and I am the situation is constantly monitored, and I can tell you, based on the briefing that I received last night about the change in weather and the significant potential with high winds and dry lightning for not only additional fires but to accelerate aggressive fire behavior. That's the decision that was taken at that point to go. We are going to declare a state of emergency. That's how those decisions are made. That's no different than in 2017 and 2018.
For our next question, we go to Amy Smart, Canadian Press.
Hi there. Over the weekend, the NBC issued a statement having to do with the tight accommodations and encouraging people who had self-evacuated to consider returning home. I'm wondering, given the forecast and the fact that many communities have had to leave so quickly that they don't have notice, they can't grab their shoes, they can't grab whatever, is that advice changing now that there's a state of an emergency?
No, the advice around evacuation orders and evacuation alerts continues to remain in place, and that's why we encourage everyone to have an evacuation plan at the ready, and also to abide by the evacuation alerts and the evacuation orders. What we want to do is to ensure that we are, in the case of an evacuation, that there are places for people to go. That's why there are 13 evacuation centers right now. We know that in some of those places that they are tight in terms of accommodations, but there are spaces in other communities, and we're also working to ensure that we have those spaces. What the state of emergency will do, as I said, is allow us to ensure that that's in place by if necessary, to be able to say this is where an evacuation center will be, whether it be a private facility or a public facility, for example. The other thing to remember too is that when Emergency BC encourages people to, if they're able to return home, that's because that evacuation order has been lifted, or that or the evacuation alert has also been downgraded. So it's always done on the basis of safety for the public and the individuals affected by those states of alerts and states of orders.
I'd like to invite members of the media who would like to ask a follow-up question to please press star 1 to enter the queue. For the first follow-up, we go to Richard Zussman, Global News.
Historically, Minister, when the province has declared a state of emergency, it has had a profound impact on the tourism sector, especially in the capital region and Metro Vancouver. We know the tourism sector has been battered by the pandemic. Are you concerned that the declaration of the state of emergency will have a continued impact on those tourism sectors?
I don't believe it will have an impact in the sense that what people are going to do, and what I know most people will do, is they are going to check and see what's happening in the area of the province that they want to go. And so if they know that there is, a travel restriction, or if they know that there is an evacuation order for a particular community or an evacuation alert, they're not likely to go. They'll look at somewhere else to go. I can tell you, just for example, my brother was looking to go up to his cabin near Sheridan Lake. It's under an evacuation alert. Obviously, he's not going to go up there. But people need to pay attention, because, as we know, this is a fluid situation. Fires start, but fires also get put out. And areas that were under an alert, or under an evacuation alert, or an evacuation order, that gets downgraded, or is no longer required. So I think most people are going to look and see what's going on in the area that they want to visit.
Next to Lisa Yusta, News 1130.
Just to follow up on Richard's question there, will there be any messaging? I mean, you've been clear about the messaging specific to people who are in dangerous situations and in dangerous areas and with closures. But beyond that emergency measure, is there going to be anything specific to tourists coming, knowing that the industry has been so battered and is trying so hard to get back on their feet? And we've heard from many that there are concerns that the state of emergency, with people not knowing the geography of BC, will presume that because Oliver, is devastated, that other areas that are far away are as well. And so is there going to be any measures taken to counteract the message and the fear that will come with the state of emergency for people, especially not from the province?
We will obviously be working with the tourism industry and tourism associations to ensure that we are able to get the message out that many parts of British Columbia are available, to travel, and to ensure that there is good communication and messaging in terms of the fire situation in the different parts of the province. But I think all of us also recognize too that public safety is absolutely paramount, and whether you're a resident or a tourist, you expect that. But absolutely, we will be working with the tourism associations and the tourism industry.
Next question, Ben Milger, CTV.
Minister Farnworth, anytime that we have evacuation orders, there are always some people who don't comply and choose to stay behind, whether to defend their properties or for whatever reason they might have. What is your message to people about how that impacts resources and puts people at risk if they don't follow those evacuation orders?
When you don't follow an evacuation order, you're not only putting yourself and potentially loved ones at risk, you're also putting at risk the lives of those who may have to come and evacuate you from an area because you decided that you were going to ignore the evacuation order. And that's just not acceptable. We've got men and women who are out there doing everything they can to keep life safe, to protect property, and the last thing that we need is resources being diverted because someone decided that they knew better and that they were going to ignore an evacuation order.
Our next question goes to Jeff Andreas, Radio NL.
Hi, thanks. I guess I was hoping to get Peter Brock to respond to this, but I understand the forecast has changed and more winds are anticipated, and that's why this state of emergency is being declared. So I guess for Peter, are you anticipating, thousands of new evacuations to be necessary in the next couple of days, and that's why your advice changed as of last night?
It depends on the situation of what happens in fires in terms of how evacuations have to take place. What we're concerned about is wind events, dry lightning, and what was acknowledged in terms of this subtropical event moving northwards. That's what drives lightning. That's what drives winds. And that's subsequently what drives fires. And so if you have lightning strikes and fires developing near communities, that may well result in significant evacuations. We've seen it in the past, and we want to make sure that we are prepared for it. And that's why, based on the advice last night, that the state of emergency is being put in place.
And our last question goes to Victor Kaiser, Radio NL.
Hi again, Minister. Just kind of adding on what Jeff just asked you. We've seen pretty similar forecasts in the Kamloops area and parts of the Caribou as well. Hot, dry, some lightning, not a lot of rain. I was wondering if you could elaborate a bit more into exactly what some of that advice is that you would have got that prompts us to take us to where we are right now, because to a lot of us here, like I said, in the interior, it's been hot, dry, and smoky for weeks now. So I'm wondering what's the difference now?
Well, there's already a base of significant fires underway, and when you receive advice that, guess what, it's now going to get even potentially worse than what it is, and that will potentially result in the need for even more evacuations, and potentially significant evacuations. That's also pretty sobering. We know that what you've been dealing with in Kamloops for the last several weeks, and the men and women out fighting the fires as hard as they can. But when we receive advice that it's going to get even worse based on what we're seeing, the appropriate decision was to listen to that advice and put in place the state of emergency, which we've done today. And that's how it is done in this province, and that's how it's been done in the past, whether it was 2017 or 2018, and now 2021.
Okay, and I believe we have a last-minute joiner. Are we able to go to Marcella Bernardo? It's 11:30. Hello? Oh, go ahead, please, Marcella. Thank you.
Hi. So I just wanted to ask about concerns being raised about resources being brought in from Australia and other countries where COVID may be a factor. We heard that 500 personnel are coming in. Can you elaborate on where they're coming from? And what kind of problems have you encountered just trying to get crews to come here from other provinces and other regions that might be able to put more boots on the ground?
Well, I can tell you in terms of other provinces, there are protocols in place. There's the Interagency Center in Winnipeg, which coordinates the deployment of resources, and we work very closely with them and other provinces, and in particular New Brunswick and Ontario and Quebec at the present time. So that's already been in place, and has been in place for quite some time. In terms of the firefighters coming in from Mexico, again, COVID-19 protocols are in place, and they are coming in on Saturday.
Thank you for listening today, and thank you for supporting us with our sponsors. Please go to depictions.media for more information, and click on our contact link and let us know how we can help bring your story and help bring us to a better world. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.